Simón, para el oro 20 de Juárez, es para ustedes.
Welcome to the Bomb Squad. I'm your host, writer-director Andrew Hada, and I'm here with my co-host, Joshua Whitney Epp. And we also have a special guest on our Summer of Guests episodes. We have with us Jolene Marie Richardson. And hello, Jolene. How are you?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a costume designer and a fashion historian. You could see my work on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs on Shudder, and a couple other projects coming up that I can't quite talk about yet, but soon enough I'll be able to talk about them. But yeah, that's what I do. I love horror. I live in this world, and I'm happy that I get to work in horror as my medium, as my living.
We invited you on to the podcast, and we had you pick a film. Of course, the Bomb Squad is here to appreciate the underappreciated, and you picked Dead Silence.
Yes.
Dead Silence is the 2007 film by James Wan, and also by Lee Hanwell. They also wrote Saw, if you've heard of that film. And this is, I think, their second film after that. It stars Ryan Quentin, Amber Valletta, and Donnie Wahlberg. And Josh, why don't you tell us what Dead Silence is?
A man receives a ventriloquist dummy in the mail, but not as all that it seems? Question mark. So, that's my brief. That's my lead in.
That was perfectly terrible. So, Jolene, why don't you tell us why you picked Dead Silence out of all the films?
Yeah, so I distinctly remember this film coming out. I was about 14 when this movie came out, and growing up watching Goosebumps, always terrified of Slappy the Dummy, so ventriloquism dummies always scared me. But then if it had lore or a nursery rhyme attached to it, I was sold. And the fact that this one had that nursery rhyme attached to it.
Beware the stare of Mary Shaw. She had no children, only dolls. And if you see her in your dreams, be sure you never, ever scream.
I was like, I'm sold. And I think it's a great film. I didn't realize that a lot of people did not like this film until I got older, but I've always loved this film.
It is a kind of unique film in that they do kind of throw a lot of things at you in terms of lore, which I always love when it's like there's almost too much lore. It follows this guy, and he gets the dummy, and the dummy's like kind of rooted to his family history, and the dummy starts killing people, or does he? The dummy's name is Billy.
Right.
Yeah, I think I you know what? I hadn't seen this movie when it came out, and I hadn't seen it since. And so this is the first time I've seen it. Josh, is this the first time you've seen it?
Yeah, same. I was, but I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I was too. I thought that it kind of felt a little bit like not a fairy tale, but kind of it had that feel of like almost like a stage play or something, you know?
Yeah, there's like an artifice to the way like people like talk to each other and stuff. But I was almost like, oh, this seems very intentionally like kind of like dramatic in that way, you know?
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like the old style of acting, like those Universal era Golden Age horror movies where you have like these heightened circumstances, so the actors are kind of playing on that. It's not camp, but it's almost camp.
Yeah, I feel like it almost feels a little bit like the Tales from the Crypt shows, where it is almost like you kind of feel like you're watching a folklore or something, you know. The Billy doll does look surprisingly like Slappy from Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks like, if you thought of a ventriloquist doll dummy right now, it would look exactly like what you think it looks like. But they get it, and then the wife is attacked by the dummy. And so he goes back to his hometown because there's this legend in his hometown about the dummy, and if you see it, you die. And so he's kind of trying to figure out what happened to his wife.
Mary Shaw, we find out, is this famous ventriloquist act and at the turn of the century, and she's performing in this flashback scene, and she gets heckled by a child, which I love that how insulted this older woman gets by this young child.
I can see your lips moving. What?
Who said that?
I did. I can see it. Her lips are moving.
That she has to go and kill him, or
Yeah.
Billy has to go and kill him. We think it's her, but it's Billy. So like, who's controlling who?
Right.
And then you find out that that's the ancestor of our main character, and that the whole reason the wife dies is because she's pregnant. So this dummy is trying to stop the bloodline. Like, he's so vindictive that he is cutting the bloodline, and they've moved away from this town, not even around anymore.
Yeah, he is. He goes all the way when he tries.
Yeah.
I think this is a good lesson about don't heckle people when they're on stage. It's very annoying.
Exactly.
You can't say he doesn't deserve his fate after, telling a ventriloquist her lips are moving. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know what you signed up for, buddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's also funny because she, even like back in the day, she kind of looks pretty creepy. It's like, man,
Yeah.
old entertainment was really limited into it. It's like, you want to go see the creepy lady with the creepy dolls? Like, I guess, but I'm gonna heckle her. I think that the backstory, especially like the reveal that, because he's trying to figure out why the wife died the whole time, and like the reveal that she was pregnant. That's a pretty good, and like it kind of makes the whole thing a lot grimmer than it had been up until that point. Even though people were dying, I feel like the fact that they were trying to like completely erase the bloodline makes it like, it adds a little bit to it.
It does. And they never explicitly say that the wife is pregnant. We only get her like looking in the mirror, like wondering what her body's going to look like when the bump starts to show. And then it's like never talked about again until that twist is revealed. So I think that was a beautiful plot device to like string some things together, and then you have to be like, oh, that's right, that did happen. And
yeah. And I think like, I do kind of like that it doesn't tell you everything right away. You're kind of trying to figure things out, especially because you're being haunted by the doll and the woman, and so it adds like a little level of like, you're trying to figure out the mystery. And I feel like James Wan likes to do that anyway, like figure it out. Even The Conjuring, it's kind of like a ghost. It's like a ghost detective story.
Yeah,
that's good. It wraps back around, because I mean, we've also seen a lot of, me and Andrew watched a lot of bad horror movies where it's like, oh, that just kind of trailed off. So it's like, oh, it's weird that they never went back to, he meets his father after his wife dies, and he has a super like young stepmom now. And I was like, oh, it's weird that they use them for exposition and then they don't come back. Then I was like, okay, never mind. It definitely comes back.
So, Josh, and if you remember, Jolene, from the first time you watch it, did you figure out that, because you find out later that the wife is, I guess we're going all spoilers, 10 minutes.
Just
spoiler alert. Yeah. But you find out that the wife is been behind it, the dad's wife, the new stepmom. She's been behind it, and she killed the dad, and she's turned
Mary
the dad
Shaw.
into a puppet. And I wonder, Josh, if you figured it out before the reveal, or if you didn't figure it out till the reveal.
I did not. So that's one of those things where it seems obvious in retrospect with the way they set up everything, but like at the time I was just like, oh, bad relationship with his dad, tale as old as time,
Yeah. What about you, Jolene? Did you when you first saw it, do you remember if you figured it out before?
Oh gosh, I don't remember. I was 14, so probably I didn't. I was probably like, what? But yeah, I just like remember then, like when they do they do the reverse camera angle where they flip the world, and then you're seeing the dad from behind, with the stepmom controlling him via the stick. And then you're like, like Joshua was saying, you're piecing those things together that like, oh, that's right, she's standing next to him the whole time, and she's like there. So it is setting it up for this like ventriloquist act in the home.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I figured it out, but I did like that they even show it in the flashback scene.
Yeah.
Where they're like, he goes, oh, we're having soup for dinner. And she's like, soup is good. And he's like, I love soup. And I just like the idea that he's like, I'm going to make the dad say he loves my terrible soup that I'm making.
Yeah. I also I came to appreciate too. There's the comp played by Donnie Wahlberg.
Oh my God. I wanted to save Donnie Wahlberg, but he's my favorite character in
He's
the
so
whole
good.
movie.
Because he immediately accuses the main character of killing his wife, being like, "Don't leave town. I'm on to you."
Yeah.
Um, but then he like follows him everywhere, and then he's like, "Oh, I bet he's," because he sees him burying the dummy, like trying to like get rid of it. And then he digs it up, and then later he's like, "I wonder if he dug up all the dummies." And then he checks 100 individual dummy graves.
Also, because Danny Wahlberg, and he's playing it like he's giving himself an even thicker accent, kind of like how Mark Wahlberg did in The Departed. And so he plays it like his voice kind of makes him sound like an older cop than his face looks, but he has like all the best lines.
You wanted answers. I'm giving you answers. Camp's over. I'm done with the ghost stories. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's such a good line.
When he knocks him down and he's getting away, he's like, "Don't make me chase you." And then as he drives off, he's like,
David! I don't have a full tank of gas.
And you know what? It's
so
funny because
fun.
I know that he was in, I think he's in Saw 3 or 4.
He's in one of them,
2.
or 2 of them.
Okay.
He's in 2, 3, and like 7. But so when I saw him and I knew that it was directed by James Wan, I thought that it was going to be like a cameo. and then he comes back and I was like, oh, we get more Donnie Wahlberg. That's awesome.
Yeah. He's so much Donnie Wahlberg.
Yeah, I feel like, and I also feel like Donnie Wahlberg, he has a habit of playing it. He always understands the assignment, to quote Twitter, where he knows exactly how much to give it without his character, because he is a comic relief, but he doesn't ever feel like he's intentionally like ruining the tone of the film,
Yeah, no, he fits in quite well, like, to it as this just kind of like constant annoyance to like the guy trying to figure out the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an insane film, because then there's like all these subplots, because then when they start going through the theater, it's a maze, and then we discover that Mary Shaw is trying to, like, the whole reason she killed the child in the first place was to make a human ventriloquist dummy, and
Yeah.
and then he like finds all the schematics, and Donnie Wahlberg's face when he finds the schematics are just like, what the fuck? Like, what is this woman doing?
And she like has the kid who's dead, and she's like, I love you. She's like talking to herself, and it's like, wait, did you want a kid? Is this what also this is about? Yeah, I like that there's so much lore that you almost don't get the whole picture. You just get enough, like you get enough information to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But it very much feels like they could have like expanded so much on everything. That I like that. I like that it leaves a lot to your imagination. Where you see the coroner pull up, and it's like an older, like a 1930s hearse, and I think I think the look of it really helps, and it adds to the overall feel.
Yeah, well, it's like this small town that's, been living in the past and hasn't really updated, but it's kind of updated, but it's still a small town, so they're not concerned with updating. And then there's like this era in 2007 where we got these weird filtered films that were like moody and blue, so like everything has this shade on top of it, and yeah.
Yeah, and and I wanted to talk about that because I feel like this is the only movie I've seen, because a lot of the films at that time had this filter, and this is one of the only ones where it feels appropriate. It doesn't feel just like they've added a filter to add spookiness. It kind of adds to the whole fairy tale like legend feel to the film, and it kind of like, I think it draws you in a lot more because it's super noticeable regardless of what movie it is. So in a movie like this, where it's a little bit more like dreamlike, it really works and adds to the story as opposed to taking you out of it.
Absolutely, yeah. And everybody's kind of wearing very earth tone colors too, and like loose fitting garments, and with the exception of Mary Shaw, who's in this like black high collar, Edwardian getup, jacket and skirt where she's fully covered, and everybody else is kind of loose and lucid, and it's a nice contrast, and it's a nice touch for sure.
Yeah, I think it works really well, and I think like I don't know, I just like movies where they go to a small town, like the Silent Hill type of stories,
Hmm.
where it's like, oh, I'm gonna go investigate this spooky thing happening at this small town. I also
Yeah.
like that every character has a scene where they talk to Billy the dummy as if it's a real person.
Yes.
If you get Jamie to scream, I'll make sure you get 7 minutes in heaven with my old Barbie. Deal?
You know, I noticed you have very smooth skin. What's your secret?
Sleep tight.
The movie's not that gory, but when it
No.
does use gore pretty well, where like he drops and then you see like the stick in the back of him, it just looks gross the whole time.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you're watching the soup like go through his mouth and just kind of drop into him. Oh, yeah, it's gross. 'Cause
yeah,
it's like pea soup. It's like Reagan vomit pea soup
Yeah, it was
that they're serving.
it was very like disgusting, but in a good way.
Yeah,
Mary Shaw, she pulls out people's tongues if you scream at her, and
right.
I just think like when people lose their tongues, it's always like the scariest thing to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of mouth horror in this movie too. Like we have the scene at the end where he's like walking closer to that clown dummy sitting in the chair, and then the big tongue of the ghost of Mary Shaw is coming through and like almost licks him like a
Yeah,
cow.
Yeah.
I really like the clown dummy. I like that she gets all these dummies and she uses a bunch of them. But the
Yeah.
clown dummy was so good. He looks. I mean, clowns are creepy and dummies are creepy.
Yeah. No, dummies are very effective, very creepy. I've known like I mean, there's that episode of Buffy with the dummy who turns out to be the good guy, but like it's still creepy up until that point
Yeah,
because
they
it's
just
just
look menacing, yeah, in
yeah.
general. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a costume professor in college who used to have a ventriloquist dummy and would bring it into the costume shop and just leave it on the shelf and it would watch us and it was so menacing. Oh, it was so creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, there's like that episode of Happy Endings where they go to a ventriloquist museum and then like they take the kids and the kids are like freaking out because it's just a bunch of dummies staring at them. Yeah, I that's what I kind of mean. Like there's a lot thrown. Like I feel like James Wan, they just threw everything where like this has dummies, it has witches, it has like like the kind of the tongue being ripped out in the mouth horror. It's just
Right.
like they kind of I feel like they put a bunch of stuff that they thought was scary and
Yeah.
they put it together to kind of like I don't know, it's just kind of cool that they've mixed all these things where you could have just had a movie with just the ghost of Mary Shaw or just the evil dummy or just like but the fact that they put them all together kind of adds to how good this movie is.
Yeah, and I think that that's why this movie doesn't get enough credit because this was like laying the foundation for his other works. So
Yeah.
this is quite early in his career, but like you're setting up this incredible mystery that and all of these clues that when you like we were saying before when you go back and think about it you're like, "Oh, no, they were setting this up the whole time. I just didn't put the pieces together." And then you have like the ghost who's possessing this woman who may or may not be the new wife of the father. And so like was she alive or like what is her essence taking over? And then it's
Yeah, it's
like
like, was that the perfect like
yeah.
dummy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you have all the dummies, but are they alive or are they just being possessed by Mary Shaw? So like there's a lot of intricate layers. This period from like 2006 to like 2010 almost. It was like really touch and go for horror movies. Like they were really bad. It was a lot of just hot celebrities in these movies, not really doing much and
Yeah.
then like still trying to figure out their footing.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, but yeah, and it's kind of good that it's because right now it's on HBO Max. That's how I saw it,
Mm.
and so it's kind of that's the good thing about like all these streaming services is you get like more of a chance to watch these movies that you didn't think.
Yeah, no, it was good. I mean, I would say anyone should check it out.
But yeah, so that was Dead Silence. That was it's on HBO Max. Go check it out. Jolene, is there anything you want to promote while we got you?
I've got my podcast, which is called To Die For. That's DYE, which is costuming in horror through a feminist lens. My co-host and I are costume designers in the genre and just talking about costumes because they don't get talked about enough. So we want to kind of highlight that for sure.
Yeah, and I think that was good because you even brought up the costumes here, and it's kind of something that I think about when I'm making a film, but when we're discussing it, it kind of gets lost
Yeah.
in the conversation.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the brilliance of like what costume designers, lighting designers, all of these designers, what they do is like it's supposed to be unrecognizable, but then like when you don't give them the credit or the recognition, that's when the problem comes in. So like catch 22.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of film, it's like the thing, like if you're doing it a good job, people don't even notice it because it's
Yes.
servicing the story. But then you're also like, hey, I did a good job on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you for coming on. We hope you had a good time.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This is a lot of fun. I'm glad that I was like you guys like this film. This is great.
And Josh, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we're gonna do another James Wan movie.
Yeah, I
James Wander what we're gonna do next, right?
You should have just done one. You did two.
Yeah.
Can't do both.
Well,
Thank you guys. I will see you next time.